Welcome to A Little TLC, the podcast where we embark on an enlightening journey through the ever-evolving world of education. I'm your host, Heather Volchko, and I'm on a mission to empower educators and change makers to skillfully navigate the intricacies of serving our most exceptional students. Every month, we'll be exploring a unique and timely theme in a mini-series format, whether we're digging into inclusive teaching practices, addressing student mental health challenges, or exploring the intricate connection between our personal and professional lives. Each month offers an in-depth exploration of weekly topics that truly matter. I hope you're ready to be both challenged and inspired because this is A Little TLC. All right, so this is the last week of the month. This month we have been focused on all things growth and progress and kind of challenging ourselves to become more tomorrow than what we are today, and just kind of doing that in a bunch of different ways and kind of acknowledging how that shows up. So we started it at the beginning of this month, back a couple of episodes now, talking about just ourself and how, how we pick what sits with us, what doesn't sit with us, what's kind of for us or not. And then we took that and applied that into learning. So how do we learn? How do we choose what to be curious about and grow? And how do we, use the resources around us to kind of position us to do that? And then last week we shifted it to then say, what if we're in the position where we have to help other people learn? So if that's as a professional or if it's as a teammate, how do we help other people kind of do those things that we had sort of talked about ourselves doing the first couple of weeks? So this last week, we are landing it on a ton of just empowerment and encouragement because learning is hard, change is hard, growing is hard. There's a lot of just like uncomfortable things that can happen in this process. And so we just want to land this whole month focused on growth and progress and change with just some encouragement. So I'm going to kick it off, Anne and Makayla. When I say like being encouraging or being empowering, what shows up for you? What are the first things you think of?
The power of a kind word. I am constantly amazed at how much anybody with whom I work, from the very littles who are barely walking to the adults who think they know everything, and everybody in between, if you just say, thank you, I
Hmm.
appreciate whatever it was you just did. If I've got a student who has particularly struggled with something and they've made even the tiniest bit of progress, a congratulatory, hey, you did that very well. You couldn't get the loop to make a circle before, and look how you closed the ends together. And they look at me like I have two heads because it's, wait a minute, you said something kind to me. Because I find so many people at this point in our trajectory don't ever hear a kind word. So to empower somebody to take the next step, you kind of got to recognize they've taken the first step.
Hmm. Gosh, and I mean, like in, I don't know, special education, or I work a lot in behavior. We are always talking about, praise and noticing what they're doing, catch them being good, like all those types of phrases. But I think um, that looks a lot of different ways, and we don't necessarily just take it for granted of like, well, good, they should have, right? Like they should have done that, or they should already know that. But instead, it's acknowledging, hey, like other times you would have just hauled off and punched that person in the face, but you just cursed them out and walked away. This is progress. Like, way to go. Like we are moving in the right direction. Like, this is great. Right. So, like, are we where we maybe want to be or feel like we need to be? Maybe not yet, but are we getting closer and are we moving in that direction? I mean, last week we talked about just get the ball down the field, right? Like, can we just move it at some point? Like, can we just keep kind of growing and learning and moving? Then that's a win. And you're right. A lot of times, not just students, but adults too. Like I'll provide a positive point of feedback of like, that was really hard and you actually handled it incredibly well. They'll go, wait, what really? Because
Mhm.
they're just noticing what was hard, and not necessarily noticing the positive things that they were doing in the middle of it too. So yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. Like, why is it so weird to receive something positive?
Well, and I will admit, in the heat of the instructional moment and the stress of the classroom and everything else going on, I was not always really good
Mhm.
about making those observations, making those notes, because my brain was always engaged with How do I put out this fire? What's the instructional thing that's coming next? I don't have time to get through everything today. Which thing am I going to sacrifice?
Exactly.
So that noticing when somebody did something well was not always at the top of my things to make sure I didn't forget. And increasingly, I recognized how much more of an effective person in the classroom I would have been
Hmm.
had I taken more time to notice that.
Interesting. So I wonder, Makayla, when you are thinking about someone being encouraging or empowering, what shows up for you?
Like, like just someone like being nice and stuff. Because like on social media there's like a lot of things where it's like, yeah, you're great at this, but that could be something that like might not be a good influence.
Mm,
And like I think there's like you shouldn't congratulate them for like something that's really like bad and stuff. But like it it's like gonna make progress, but like, you know, it's like, yeah, congratulate them for the progress they made, but like also kind of try to explain to them, like, but we still don't do this. Like, try to be like nicer. But that is good progress, but like, don't do that next time, you know? So
yeah.
I think there's like a difference of supporting them and like encouraging them to do bad stuff.
Yeah. And that's, I think you're really noticing something that I'll say right now, kind of at the moment that we're recording this, there's a lot of um, like contentious debates, and there's a lot of people that have some very hot opinions,
Mhm,
and they're kind of throwing them at each other right now.
mhm,
And on both sides, and I think there's more than two sides, but there's on all the sides, there's kind of a group of people that are encouraging that opinion, right? And maybe the loud voices that are saying those things, there's a whole group of people around them being like, yeah, exactly, totally that. Like, keep saying that. I agree with you. But maybe not all the opinions are maybe like what you're kind of saying, like, I don't know if it's like good things or if it's like, maybe it makes sense in a little pocket, but maybe not when you zoom out and make it a bigger thing.
mhm,
Um, and so I like how you're kind of pointing out, like, yeah, you can be encouraging. Um, but can we maybe be careful about what we're encouraging?
mhm.
I like that you're sort of noticing that. Um, do you have any examples that you're thinking of that would maybe be an example of something that you see in social media being encouraged? Like, yeah, go you, do that. That's maybe something that doesn't sit with you that you're like, oh, but I don't feel like that's okay with me.
There's like a lot going on right now, so I don't think I can like put something out there because
Mhm.
there's like a lot of controversy and like it like it's kind of like hard to say something without being like without someone being like, "Oh my god, why are you saying this?" And like
Mhm.
I don't know if I really have an example to say.
Yeah. No, I
So
love
yeah.
I love that response, right? Because I feel very similar. I didn't call names out when I just shared what I shared. I didn't call the
Mhm.
actual thoughts or opinions out, right? And it's so hard to have these conversations where it's like, well, maybe it doesn't sit with me. Like, that's not who I am, and that's not what I'm okay with. And it's not like I'm better than you because I think these things. It's truly just like we're different people. And so we have different thoughts and we have different opinions, we have different lives, and that's okay and part of all being humans together, right? But then it does make it extra hard to then figure out, well, then how can I encourage you, right? Like, how can I be empowering to you and like for you as a person to go forth and be you as a person, right? And I want to
Mm.
be happy for you to be your own person. And I don't much care if like you are the same kind of person as me. Like, I just want you to be the best kind of person that you can be. And like, how do we then encourage and kind of empower those people around us to be the best versions of themselves, even if we may disagree with either things they're doing or beliefs that they hold? How can we still be encouraging to them?
Be very respectful. I feel like just don't be so snarky about it too. Like, just try to say it with like a right tone and like make sure they get your intentions of like trying to be helpful, I think. Because like if you just come off with like, you shouldn't be believing this. This is so much like just
Mm.
that they're probably gonna take that in a like a pretty offensive way. So just figure out your wording and like the way you're gonna phrase it with the tone and like facial expressions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that I talk with teachers about all the time, right? It doesn't matter what you're saying. A lot of it is how you're saying it. Like, did you notice your tone? Did you notice how you were standing? Like, did you notice your eye contact or lack thereof, right? Like, so you may be saying the exact right things, right? And I work in a world where we're working on behavior and teaching social skills, and a lot of staff want us to write down and like put in the plan, like, what do I say? What do I do? And they want these very specific, like, I need to say this phrase and then the whole team is going to say this phrase and that will mean this thing. And it's like, well, yes, like I'm all for like common languaging and like not making it even more confusing. Yes to all of that. But if you say it in a tone that's like you're saying, Michaela, kind of snarky, well, that's going to have a very different impact than if you say it, calm or compassionate or genuine, right? Like same exact words, but the
Yeah.
meaning is very different, right? One might be incredibly encouraging and helpful, and the other one is almost kind of condescending and like you're looking down on them, but it's the
Mhm.
same words.
You asked, we answered, and the virtual door is now open. Heather, Manny, and Candace address the questions you submitted and provide valuable insights, tips, and strategies. This is your event. Your thoughts drive our conversation. Be that fly on the wall and immerse yourself in the camaraderie and knowledge exchange that happens inside our consultancy. But remember, this is an exclusive event for all of our district partners and network supporters. Supporting members of the TLC Network gain access to a virtual community where you can discuss and share insights with fellow supporters anytime. We even host a mini professional learning community about our latest episode every Monday. Prepare for an exclusive behind-the-scenes experience as we invite you to eavesdrop on this month's dynamic conversation. See you on the inside.
I don't know, Anne. I think you've done a lot of coaching with staff that have been trying to walk through some very challenging situations. If it's students that are showing up with a lot of needs, or it's staff working in communities that have just been put through it. How do you encourage the adults that you're with to either keep showing up or to acknowledge the fact that like they are doing what they can do? How do you encourage them? How do you empower them?
The first step is acknowledging what they do,
Mm,
because so much of time is very often spent with all day long. We hear what we're not doing right. We hear what we messed up. We hear how we failed somewhere. We failed where we forgot to fill out some form and check some box in some obscure location. And I'm sitting here going, I have a 5-year-old who doesn't know how to use the potty, and you're worried that I checked a box somewhere.
mm,
So it gets really frustrating to look at the minutia, and it admittedly in an administrator's head, it's not minutia,
right.
but in a staff member's head who feels like they are constantly putting out fires and don't necessarily have the skill or the resources to deal with situations that they've never encountered before, never seen before. And you just feel like you're always gasping for that next breath. In coaching, the first thing you do is you acknowledge everything that you're doing. And a lot of times, prof- staff are to some degree in their own silo, and somebody does a walkthrough and you see a snapshot in a minute and a half, and you didn't see either the fires you put out in the escalation to whatever was going on or the smoothing out of after the
Hmm.
event happened. Um, so that when you're coaching staff, you acknowledge everything they're doing. And then instead of preaching, and this is how you need to do it differently and better, you seek, so how can I help you? What are the areas in which you feel you are most drowning? And long, long time ago, I had a principal assume that because I was an older teacher, I needed to go to the This Is How You Use Technology presentation.
Oof.
And because my administrator directed me to do that, I dutifully did what I was told and attended. And while I was there, a different administrator who I had worked for prior and knew me walked in, looked at me, and said, "Why are you here?" I said, "Because this is where my administrator directed me to go." And that second administrator just sort of shook their head and walked away,
Yeah.
because she knew that I could have been the presenter in that session, but that particular administrator had no clue. And as a coach, I need to recognize that people have all sorts of different gifts and talents that may not be revealed in every single 30-second snapshot that observers will notice. So, as a coach, sort of like a sports coach, you take the lead from whoever you're working with that says, "I appreciate that this is the hot button topic at the moment, but this other area is where I really need help and support to better support my kiddos."
Yeah, but I love that you're seeing the whole person, right? Like you're seeing not just what's right in front of them, not just what's, either the assumed need or the noticed need, but you're also seeing all the different things that they may have to offer and where they may have some strengths that they may not even notice as strengths. Because a lot of times I'm working with staff that are doing a whole lot, and they're kind of underselling themselves because it's not having the outcome that they wanted to have. And so it's not, well, I'm doing nothing and nothing's working. It's no, look at all the things that you are doing. And let's figure out of those things which ones are being the most impactful because let's keep doing those. And please notice that you're doing them. Like that's amazing. I think of, times, Makayla, where you're sharing stories and you're giving examples of like, let me tell you about my day and here's what's going on, right? And there's been moments where I'll stop you and be like, can I just notice for you for just a moment? Like, that's a really grown up thought. Like, that's a very adult perspective. Or like, you handled that situation incredibly well, right? Where in the moment, you're just like, oh my gosh, this and that and the other thing. And like, we only see our experiences, right? And sometimes it can be so helpful and honestly encouraging to have someone outside of our situation kind of pause us and say, hey, but look, right? Like, yes, it's frustrating. Yes, these things are hard. Yes, to all of that, but are you also noticing, right? Like you're still showing up. You're still trying to figure it out. You haven't given up yet. You're still in this and you're active. And that's why it's probably frustrating is because you haven't figured it out yet. Right. But look at all of the thinking and the skills and all of like the things that you have grown in, even by trying to figure it out. Like to have someone outside of us kind of pause us in our tracks and notice, oh, wow. Like, did you see this? Did you recognize that? Like, this is different, right? Like, I came in last month and saw this, and look at all these things that you've done since then. Like, this is amazing. Sure, maybe we're still not where we want to be, right? Like, we haven't reached whatever goal we want to be, right? But like, there's progress. And sometimes it does take someone outside of us to kind of pause us and notice that for us and really kind of make us think about it. I don't know. I'm thinking of different mentors in my life that I've gone to for different things. Kind of what we were talking about a couple weeks ago. And if I have something new I want to learn, do I learn it? How do I learn it? And who do I go to help me learn it? And sometimes it's just a mentor who is done this or been there, done that, and they're kind of further ahead than me, and they can, knowing what they know, be able to look back and see what they needed at different points in time in their own learning journey. And they're able to say, hey, I got you in this, right? Because you've got this figured out. And then here's the next step. Here's a couple other things you need, right? And they can kind of pull us along in our own journeys through kind of, having been there, done that. They can guide us. They can be our mentors or our coaches or whatever, you know, titles we want to put on these positions. So I'm wondering in your lives, have you been in that situation where you have been able to kind of turn around and help someone else out? Like, hey, I might not know all the things, like I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I might have some pieces. And like, I'm happy to share some of that, my learning with you so that you can, learn it too, or maybe learn it faster, or maybe not have to experience the same experiences that I learned. Have you had any opportunities to do that for people in your lives?
As close as I could come is when mandates have come down the pike and staff is freaking out over yet another apparently paperwork satisfying mandate.
Mm.
How can I meet the mandate, accomplish some degree of what's being asked, and still maintain my sanity? So that at one point, when differentiated instruction was presented, and it was presented as if you had to prepare a separate learning plan for all 30 kids in your classroom,
Oof.
the teachers lost their minds. And one of the things I was able to do is say, you have this cluster of 5 children with this particular issue. Write one plan and put it on rinse and repeat. And if you know your population, you can structure a goal so that it's useful for more than one cycle,
Yep.
so that you don't have to lose your mind all the time. So it's a way of taking a particular nugget of something that you've got experience with and packaging it in such a way to pay it forward so that when that cluster of teachers gets whatever the next mandate is, where their heads explode, they can say, oh, but I can repackage this a little bit to still check the box and make it useful for my particular group of people.
Yeah, you're making me think of a interaction I had, gosh, maybe my first or second year teaching. And it was with a teacher who was kind of counting down the days to their retirement. An amazing teacher, someone I absolutely admired and was so thankful that I could work with. But they were just so done for exactly what you were talking about is like the metrics and the oversight and all, all these new mandate type things that were coming through. And she was just like, when I started being a teacher, we could just teach. We could just be creative. We could help them learn, right? Yes, we had standards. Yes, we had targets. Yes, we knew what we were like trying to get them to learn, but there was more freedom in it. And now you have to do it this way, or you have to do it in this timeline, or there's more parameters around it. And she was really frustrated by it. And it was interesting because I hadn't seen it that way because I didn't experience that, right? In my teacher prep, it was a given, right? Like these are the standards and these are the mandates and this is these are the parameters that we work within. So get creative in those parameters. And so we had this really cool conversation where she was just like, I wish I could see my profession like you see it because you see opportunity, like you see all of the constraints and all the like, oh, we have to do this. But you actually know like how to work that in such a way so that you can have fun and do that. She's like, all I see is it's no fun anymore. And so we actually work together so that we could, exactly what you're saying is how do we find the systemized ways that we can do what we need to do, but do it in a way that still gives us breathing room and we can still have, time for, those teachable moments and the oopses that happen in the classroom. And it doesn't completely derail everything, but we are still doing, right by either the materials and resources we're supposed to be using or the timelines that we're supposed to be hitting, right? Like we're staying within our bounds. But we aren't kind of chained or bound to, those boundaries. And it was just like an interesting moment to go, oh, like two different people, different points in their career. I admired her and looked up to her like a ton, but she was looking at me in reverse, being like, man, I admire you and like how that works out. Like, that is such a cool opportunity. I don't know, Makayla, are you thinking like in your, student experience, do you have people around you that are like, yeah, you're maybe your peers or your friends, but like they're so much better at this than I am, or that's really cool. Like I love that about them. Like, do you see your peers that way?
Yeah, I think like their skills are like really cool to have, and like don't get me wrong, like I really do wish I could have them, but it's like it's good for them, like like, it's just, like, nice that they have them, like, I'm not, like, jealous in a way, but I'm just, like, happy that they have them, like, I'm happy for them, so
Oh yeah, sometimes I'm jealous.
yeah,
There are moments of jealousy going, oh man, I wish I could do that.
sometimes, but, like, I'm, like, really happy for them that they have that, and, like, I do wish I could have it, but, like, we're all different and, like, in our own ways, and, like, they have, like, they're really, like, good skills, but I also have mine, and, like, I'm just, like, appreciative that I have, like, skills that I'm also really good at,
Hmm.
you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, but I think if we can see that in other people and we get those opportunities to be like, hey, you're really good at this. Like, that can be so encouraging because, especially like, if I don't think I'm very good at it and then someone says, no, actually, like, you're kind of a rock star. I'm like, wait, what, really? Because sometimes all I see is what I need to grow, what I need to learn, what do I need to progress, right? Like, I'm not where I think I should be. But someone else says, wow, like, this is so cool. I'm like, wait, what? Right? So to be able to see those things in each other is really neat, but then to be able to communicate that, that is the empowerment piece. And I think if we can then see that in other people, put words to it, then we're empowering them to keep making those choices, like keep learning, keep growing, keep going and being awesome and doing more of whatever those things are, like keep growing in those ways. And especially when it's really frustrating or really hard, because change is hard, to have someone say, no, like, look at where you used to be. Look at where you are now. Like, this is cool. Even if it's just yesterday to today and little stuff, like, this is growth. This is progress. Like, and by putting words to it, acknowledging it, that can be that empowerment. That can be that encouragement that kind of just keeps it going. Right. And I think that's for anybody, right? Like, if you do that to me or if I do that to you, like, it's all going to be on different stuff because we're all on different paths and we're all trying to figure out different things. All right. Well, I am super thankful that you have spent this month with me having these conversations and talking all about growth and learning and change, something that can be kind of hard at times, but I think there's also some really neat opportunities in there. And thanks for having the conversation from two very different corners of life, right? I am lucky I get to be sort of sandwiched right here in the middle of it with, having been where Makayla is and aspiring to be where Anne is. But thank you for having this conversation with me this month, and I look forward to our next ones. Hey, before you jump back into your busy life, we want to invite you to head over to thresholdlearning.org, your one-stop destination for all things TLC. Here you'll find our blog with this episode's show notes, our ever-expanding bookshelf of resources, and anything else we've talked about. Trust us, there's a ton of benefits waiting for you to explore. Just head over to thresholdlearning.org, click on network, and we'll see you on the inside. Sharing the podcast with your colleagues is the easiest way to support the show. You can find us at Threshold Learning TLC on Facebook and Instagram. A personal recommendation is by far the best way to share the podcast. Let them know they can listen on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else they catch their podcasts. Just be sure to leave a rating and review on your favorite platform. You can email us at info@thresholdlearning.org. We always enjoy connecting with fellow educators and champions for educational justice. You can find everything you're looking for at thresholdlearning.org. See you there.